Welcome back to New Rockstars, I'm Erik Voss, and the Loki finale left us feeling kind of like confused little kids.
Grow up!
All credit goes to the cryptic performance of Jonathan Majors as He Who Remains, a variant of Kang the Conqueror. And we know he won, or a version of him won, but how exactly? Eating an apple a day to keep Dr. Strange away? After obsessing over this final episode, I have realized that uncertainty and distrust are necessary components of He Who Remains' plan. A plan that he actually started to show us a script of. We have part of a plan! But when we step back and start to widen our scope and realize that this plan was truly Kang's plan, we can better understand where things are headed not only in season 2, but most other MCU titles ahead. Really, the first question we have to address is He Who Remains working against his other variants, or actually working in their collective interest? He explained his original variant was a 31st century scientist who discovered multiple realities at the same time as other variants, leading to a period of knowledge sharing, but then multiversal war. That war created tears in reality that created Alioth, which this variant weaponized, creating the TVA and the Void to prune the multiverse down to one timeline, end the chaos, and stop the war. We can conclude then that the Nexus events the TVA has been pruning are branches that actually lead to the rise of Kangs. He Who Remains says what he fears most of all is himself and describes his role as a safeguard against the other Kangs.
I keep you safe.
And if you think I'm evil, just wait till you meet my variants.
But the confusion comes from He Who Remains' apparent delight upon their crossing the threshold, going off script, the sacred timeline unraveling to allow other Kangs through the floodgates, and Sylvie killing him.
See you soon.
It's as if he wanted this to happen. As I pointed out in the breakdown, He Who Remains might have called this shot back when Sylvie beheaded the Timekeeper in episode 4. And we just learned from the director that all those timekeepers were voiced by Jonathan Majors. But despite all of He Who Remains' hard work, why would he now want his sacred timeline to unravel and other worse Kangs to take over? He made it sound like that was the worst option, with his preference being that Loki and Sylvie replace him Willy Wonka style.
There's two options. One, you kill me and destroy all this, and you don't just have one devil, you have an infinite amount. Or, you two run the thing.
When Loki asks why he would give up his power, He Who Remains responds,
I'm tired, and I'm older than I look. This game is for the young, the hungry.
Now, I think He Who Remains might be telling the truth when he says he's old and tired, but I think his true intended replacement is a younger and hungrier Kang. He Who Remains' plan and Kang's plan are one and the same, to preserve Kang's supremacy by turning Loki and Sylvie against each other. And thank you to Vessi Shoes for sponsoring this video. Vessi makes these knit sneakers that are 100% waterproof and snowproof, making them the perfect travel shoe. These bad boys were made for Splash Mountain, which growing up in Florida is what we called a trash mound after a hurricane, because we couldn't afford to go to them fancy theme parks. Vessi shoes are super stretchy. They fit like a sock. They only weigh 175 grams, just great for throwing in a suitcase. They're made with this Dymatex material that keeps your feet warm in cold weather but cool in warm weather, and it's super easy to clean with just a rinse of water. These are truly an everyday shoe, whether you're hitting up a theme park, hiking through a national park, or just getting a drink spilled on you by Randall Park. Keep the close-up magic out of the bar, Jimmy Woo!
Skipping through the grass, swallow, drinking. Oh no! I spilled water all over my feetsy weetsies, but my oinky oinkies are bone dry like the Dune Sea. Thanks, Bessie.
So get them while they still have sizes, and you can thank me later. Check them out in the link below and use my code NEWROCKSTARS to get $25 off your Vessi shoes. From the TVA's perspective, the most significant anomaly on this series occurred back in episode 4, when Loki and Sylvie held hands, creating a Nexus event so dangerous it bypassed the apocalypse that was supposed to erase it.
You ever seen a branch like that?
No.
Therefore, the greatest threat to Kang's order is two gods of mischief combining their intellects. That crashes the system. An anomaly so rare, so unprecedented, that the first words we hear He Who Remains speak reflect his shock at seeing two Lokis together.
This is wild. The two of you, same person. I mean, it's a little unnatural, but wow.
And when they later cross the threshold, the thunder rumbles, the sacred timeline begins to unravel. Sylvie has not yet even killed He Who Remains, though. That timeline is collapsing on its own, and that's because the moment variants L1130 and L1190 came together, the version of the sacred timeline that's been overseen by He Who Remains became obsolete and was destined to unravel the longer these two variants stayed together. And now He Who Remains has accepted his fate, that his fragile stalemate can no longer function, and as much as he hates to admit it, he must save his Kang Empire by stepping down, and while doing so, making sure these two Lokis are divided. Now, in the comics, the variant Kangs are organized into a council of Kangs, led by Kang Prime. They eliminate divergent Kangs from the multiverse to ensure Kang Prime would become Immortus. Confusing couple sentences there, I get it. But the point is, He Who Remains is likely not working alone, but really on behalf of the greater Kang kind. And now, thanks to his system failure to ensure the survival of the Kang Empire, he must step aside and allow a new Kang to take his place. If you think about it that way, it starts to make sense why He Who Remains presents his gambit this way.
And that's the gambit. Stifling order or cataclysmic chaos.
Kang's gambit is perfectly designed to turn Loki and Sylvie against each other by giving one exactly what they want while giving the other what they most dread, playing on their innate propensity to distrust, to outsmart, to overthink, or as Mobius says,
it's always the game within the game with you guys.
So in this ultimatum, we got option A, perpetuate the lie, allow Loki to rule alongside his love, but in doing so, trap Sylvie alongside someone she can't fully trust and force her to rob countless innocents of their free will, as was done to her as a young girl. Like, even if Sylvie had said yes to this, eventually it would have worn her down and turned her against Loki. So instead, she cannot help but go with option B, revenge, executing He Who Remains for the injustices that she's experienced, even if that would mean playing Kang whack-a-mole for the rest of all time. Because think about it, vengeance seekers, they always just keep scratching that itch. It's never enough. And in doing so, this would forever trap Loki within someone else's game, which is his worst nightmare. So knowing all the Loki's tendency to second guess everything is their own undoing, He Who Remains primed this ultimatum with seeds of doubt the entire conversation.
My methods are deceptive.
Sylvie!
You think you can trust this guy?
We're all villains here. We've all done horrible, terrible, horrific things.
Which notice he says to Sylvie while pointing to Loki. So as it comes time to make a decision, whichever option they might lean toward, He Who Remains has already rigged this decision by priming these Lokis to doubt each other. They now believe either option is a zero-sum game, where if their variant were to win, they were to lose. It's game theory 101, folks. Play your opponents against each other by making them think cooperation is not an option.
Because you can't trust. And I can't be trusted.
So, when the timeline begins to fracture before Sylvie even makes a move and they go off script, He Who Remains knows in that moment that his plan was successful. It's proof that the script is no longer in his hands, but in the hands of one of his variants. And more importantly, that Sylvie and Loki are no longer on the same page of it. Divided and conquered. And that is where Loki is tragically left at the end of this season, just as Lady Sif said he would be.
I hope you know you deserve to be alone, and you always will be.
But the fact that he could just want someone else to be okay, learn it's not about him, that gives us hope that he can defy the master plan of Team Kang. And knowing this, we now know what Kangs fear the most are not other Kangs, it's other Nexus beings that could destabilize their empire, and variants of the same being cooperating, complementing each other, but not following the history that the Kang variants did and going to war with each other. So Kang's greatest threat going forward? The Scarlet Witch, alternate Sorcerers Supreme, a possible trio of Spider-Man variants, and Loki's someday, hopefully, learning to trust each other. Comment down below with your thoughts and theories. Remember, you can still get our Loki-inspired merch at newrockstarsmerch.com, like our Loki at a Time shirt, directly supports us here at New Rockstars. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at EA Voss. Follow and subscribe to New Rockstars. Thanks for watching. Bye.